Now I'd like to talk about another tool that we use to drive growth, which are growth models. These are quantitative models that represent the key drivers that are impacting growth and helping move your North Star metric. A growth model has two main components. The first one is this text-based outline of what impacts your North Star metric. And the second aspect of it is the growth model spreadsheet itself, where you take that outline and you convert it into a spreadsheet. And we'll talk about how to build both of these. Why build these growth models in the first place? Well, the first reason is that this gives you a really simple way to understand what is really driving growth. It helps you identify what those levers are. And combined with the user flow diagrams that we talked about in the last video, this is a way to identify even more growth opportunities that you can focus on. And it gives you a very different perspective on what those opportunities are. The user flow models gives you a view of how users are going through your app and how you can improve that overall process. This focuses on the levers, and by moving each lever, which ones will have the biggest impact on the overall growth of your app. I do want to make sure that you focus on keeping these growth models simple. They're intended to help you identify growth opportunities and intended to help you identify which one of these opportunities will likely have the biggest impact on your North Star metric and your overall growth. They are not intended to be something that can accurately predict what the growth of your overall application will be. Let's focus on the first part, which is creating the outline itself. The way to think about this is think of it as a function. The output of the function is your North Star metric. That's what you're trying to drive, and everything else are inputs into it. What are the things that impact the North Star metric? Those are your levers. So let's start at a very high level, and let's say your North Star metric is daily active users. And you may want to break that down, the first level, as well. The two inputs to that is that's a combination of new users today plus returning users who came back today. Those add up to be my daily active users. Let's drill in a little bit further. Well, let's say new users are all of those users who visit the App Store from a viral invite, a cross promotion, ads, marketing, and PR. Add those together, those are all the visitors, times the conversion rate for visitors to downloads, what percentage of the visitors will download it, times the percentage of those who download who actually onboarded and became a user. And if I look at returning users, I may have users coming back from notifications and then organic returns, which is there was just an internal motivation that they wanted to come back. And we may even want to go one level deeper. That's about as far as I would recommend. Where let's say we want to drill into the App Store visitors from viral invites. Well, that's a function of how many returning users I have, because they're the ones who have to send the invites, times the percentage of them that are sending those invites. So returning users, how many invites do they each send? That's going to give me the total number of invites sent to potential new users, times the click-through rate of those invites that are sent. Multiply all that out, and that gives me the number of visitors or the number of new users that came from these viral invites. One really important tip is this notion of organic returns. You're always going to have people who come back because they're finding value in the app and they have an internal motivation to do so, rather than because we prompted them with an email or a notification or something else. And the way to think about this is it's a function of your user's internal needs. Now, we can't really do too much about that, but we can about the rest of the things here, which is it's also a function of your app's ability to meet their needs. That's just the functionality in the app itself. So if we want to increase organic returns, one potential lever is the functionality of the app itself. The next point is equally important and often forgotten, which is it's not just that your app can do this, it's that the users are aware that your app can do this. So you may want to raise awareness of the features that you have in the app. And then the last one is how easy is it for a user to express whatever those needs are in the app? Is it front and center, or do they have to go 4 or 5 or 6 taps in to actually use this feature that they want to use? So once we've drilled down a few levels, maybe 2 or 3 levels, this is what a finished growth model outline would look like. And again, you can see it generally fits on a page. I certainly wouldn't recommend going beyond 2 pages. This is the end of the first phase for us. Now we've got this outline. The next thing that we want to do is build a spreadsheet from this. The way to think about this is that each metric in that outline becomes a row in the spreadsheet, and those formulas that you saw that we had previously become the formulas in the cells of the spreadsheet. So here's an example. If we just take the acquisition levers part of the outline, you can see how each of those main sections maps directly to a section in the spreadsheet, and each of those metrics that we had in those sections becomes an additional line in those sections as well. And then if I have a multiplication sign somewhere in the outline, that just means 2 cells are multiplied in the spreadsheet. I do this also for the retention levers. I didn't go into as much detail here, but you can see I've got the sections again aligned. And create these as separate tabs. So I've got my acquisition levers and my retention levers. I recommend creating a third tab as well, which is a quick summary tab, which adds them all together. And that is the tab that will show you your North Star metric. And so now you've got this, your acquisitions, your retentions, and the overall summary. The next step is to fill in current data. So for each of those metrics there, what are the values? Now, I know that it's rarely the case that you have good data on all of this. And in those places where you don't have great data, it's fine. 100% accuracy is not what we're going for here. This isn't supposed to be an accurate predictive model. You just need something that's close enough because we're just trying to figure out how much of a lever this is. And there are going to be cases where you're entirely missing data. That shouldn't stop you. You can say, well, what do we think it is? Or maybe sometimes, well, what does it need to be for growth to work in our scenario, in our product? So an educated guess is much better than just leaving it blank. And there may be a little bit of a challenge with the organic returns that I was talking about, because those are a little bit hard to figure out. The 2 best ways to do that are, if you have a product that's been out there for a little while, look at the percentage of people that are coming back where you can't identify what they're coming back from, meaning it was their internal motivation, and just extrapolate that. Or if you've built something like a retention curve for your product that shows over time what percentage of users who installed on a certain day are still active, you can then use that and make a slightly more complicated spreadsheet model of how many users should be coming back if your retention curve is accurate. But basically fill this in, and that gives you where you are today. Then we're going to extrapolate it out just a few months. And what you're doing is looking at where do we think we'll be if things hold as they are. But what we also want to do is include how we think things like ratios and rates are going to change over time. So if we have a click-through rate of 4% right now, and we believe we should be able to get that to 5 or 6%, then maybe after a month, change the 4% to a 5% and the 5% to a 6% a month after that, and see what impact that has on the North Star metric. That's how you get a sense of the strength of these overall levers. So you're assessing the impact of changing various things in there to find out, wow, if we change the click-through rate here, or if we change the number of people who use this feature, or if we change the number of notifications that we send, or whatever it may be, we will expect to see a very big increase in the North Star metric. Then those are the key levers to focus on. Then the next 2 things you want to do is just focus on, well, what do we believe is the effort to make those changes and improve those numbers and those metrics and those values? And what's our confidence that if we put that work in, this will actually work? Combine all 3 of those together, and that's how you prioritize what you should be working on to drive growth. Now, I've given you a quick overview of various tools that we use. If you want to get more details on tools and insight into more tools and get some more examples about how these are actually being used within Google, please go to go/growth. Thank you.